I want to tell you about a fantasy esports service. It's called Alpha Draft. So if you smart, if you loyal, then you go to Alpha Draft, you play, you see if you can win. If you've been playing elsewhere, other fantasy esports services, quite frankly, it's called you played yourself. But you know what? It's okay, fam. I'm going to hold you down. You play at Alpha Draft, you win Skrilla, you put this money in your savings account. And then you know what you do after that? You play another one. Because you know what? When I play at Alpha Draft, all I do is win. I mean, ever since I got with Alpha Draft and I got that 6 Skrilla, people say I changed a lot. But that's just the way it is. So, okay. FugLy, former Team Liquid player, has joined CLG, replacing the outgoing FNS. And obviously, CLG as a team was in a little bit of disarray as rumours, and by the way, when I say rumours, I mean these things were going to happen, but for whatever reason they didn't, which we won't go into right now. Tariq was going to leave to join Cloud9, and Cutler had offers to go elsewhere. In the end, though, it's only FNS that leaves, and FNS goes to TSM. And FugLy, obviously, was removed from Team Liquid to make room for Simple. So, FugLy joining the team. First of all, the history of FugLy. So he essentially only became in any way relevant as a player in North America, as a player for Denial towards the end of 2014. And most famously, the team itself had a pretty good tournament, famously when they had Shazam going ham in their team with Spam, Green Eggs and Ham, all that shit. So at the ESEA Season 17 tournament. But another one of the players, along with Shazam, who played very well, was your boy FugLy, and he had a pretty good tournament here. Particularly, he had a game against Titan on Inferno, which was one of Titan's best maps, one of the maps they were actually one of the best teams in the world on, and he had almost 30 kills in that game. He had 29 kills. He had a really breakout performance, and so that lineup, after a couple of the members left, became Team Liquid. And in Team Liquid, unfortunately, the year started off in 2015 with one really poor performance, where this time the team went against Fnatic on Inferno. So it was Fnatic they played this time. Obviously, Fnatic was the best team in the world, debatably, or at least top 2 at the very minimum. And this is where the team got absolutely wrecked in this game at MLG Aspen, and he only got 4 kills, unfortunately. In fact, what's funny is, against Swedish teams, particularly Fnatic and NiP, in his career, FugLy actually struggled quite a lot, especially early on at his first big international lands, where he had a number of games against Fnatic and NiP where he didn't even get into double digits in kills. He was just getting wrecked completely, and the big problem with those teams at the time was that everyone tended to be getting wrecked against the European competition in Team Liquid, except Nitro, who wouldn't get wrecked, but he would just kind of bait a bit, and he would get exit kills, and he would just get safe kills, and he would just kind of trade his teammates, and he would get like double-digit kills, but low double digits, and just be like, oh, I did okay in that game, but his team would get utterly wrecked. So as a result, that dynamic is what makes FugLy's career interesting, because he's someone where when Hiko joined, Team Liquid got better as a team. They stopped having all these problems on LAN where they were just a joke against European teams. They started to win maps. They started to look like they were a threat to be the best NA team, the team that they could potentially make the playoffs of a major. But unfortunately, Hiko joining and the way it shifted the roles around in the team made most of the other players in the team better and the team better, but it actually kind of destroyed FugLy's game to a degree. So before Hiko joined, and they played this style where, like I said, they could be quite hesitant against the European teams, and they would do well against the North American teams, but again, we weren't going to be like a Cloud9 type team. And in this particular type of world, it was actually, to me, FugLy who was the best Team Liquid player. Yes, Nitro's incredibly skilled. We know now he's probably the best NA player, but I thought for the first period, almost up until Hiko joined, FugLy was the best player in Team Liquid, mainly because he played way more unselfish than Nitro did. And he actually was way more impactful in terms of the kills he'd get in the game. He was willing to be more aggressive, which Nitro wasn't until Elige was put in place, and then Hiko joined, and it really shifted the team dynamic. So FugLy was the guy who was getting the impact kills, who was playing aggressively, who had the good AK, who'd go in, and also, as well as being able to entry and take up in the sites, he'd also be able to do pretty decently in the clutch round situations. He was sort of like a 50-50 type player. He was good in that particular realm. So the main issue is, during that point in time, he was the main guy. I said, right, you got to stick with this guy. Okay, we need to figure out how to make Nitro work, but the others were all on the table for me. You could have chopped any of them off. It was okay. I didn't know at the time Elige would become as good as he has become, because it was partly his partnership with how he activated Nitro that's made him good. FugLy was the guy at the time. So it's sad, unfortunately, that for Team Liquid to get better, he's kind of the guy who got squeezed out and left out and wasn't really in any position to have the roles that he needed. Because when Hiko joined, okay, Hiko's obviously going to be the lurker. Adren's the in-game leader, not a very skilled player, so he's going to be playing more to the back with Hiko. Then you've got Elijah's the main entry fragger. Nitro comes with him as the second entry. And so that just leaves FugLy in this weird middle ground where he's not really doing either aspects of the game. He's not really just like the pure clutch player. He's not really the guy who's the entry guy. He's in this weird middle territory, and his impact really dropped off in the team, I thought. Like he suddenly just became like one of the worst players in the team along with Adren, and just not a very impactful player overall. Like they would win games because of Elijah's entries and then Nitro's big fragging and then Hiko getting nice clutches. Unfortunately, FugLy was kind of left on the outside, and it didn't make sense his role within the team. Now, I have to say, on one level, Team Liquid did him dirty, which is that they cut him, they let him go to get Simple. Whereas, obviously, the worst player in the team is Adren. Now, with that said, okay, we get it. Adren's the in-game leader. In theory, he's the AWPer. I mean, to me, you have to kill people with the AWP to actually be the AWPer. But okay, he buys AWPs and lets the fucking AWP sound ring across the map like a 5k decoy grenade. But, okay, let's say he's playing that role. Okay, I get it. In that case, the only player left to remove is FugLy. And you want Simple, and Simple's a fantastic player, so okay, we remove FugLy in that sense. But, I mean, he did him dirty in as much as he's definitely good enough to be a team like this. And if you put him in the right role, he could be a very good player. So, what I think is, one of the things I should mention is, he did, like I referenced before, once Hiko did come, he did struggle. He had a number of poor tournaments. I mean, at PGL, that was the one where they won, I think it was Cobblestone against Fnatic, and they had the close overpass game against Virtus Pro. Over that tournament, he was fairly underwhelming. He was one of the players who didn't really perform up to par. At RGN, which was against all the NA teams, he was pretty bad actually at that tournament. That was the one where he kind of really struggled. Let me think what else. At ESL ESEA Pro League Season 2 at the end of the year, he had his issues. He did have one particularly good game when he was in the Hiko edition of Team Liquid, which was iBuy Power Cup in the game against Cloud9 on Inferno, when Team Liquid just bodied them. It was like 16-4. He was going ham in this particular game. That was a very good game for him. Now, as a player, in terms of at his best, he's a pure rifler. He's not going to fuck around with the AWP. It's just not really going to happen. He's a pure rifle player. He's a good AK player, and you're going to see him at his best on the terrorist side. I think he's at his best when he's one of the more aggressive players. I don't know that I'd have him as the pure entry. Second entry, I think as an entry team, depending on the side of the map he's on, I think that's where he's at his best. Opening sights up, going in, having the AK, taking decent aim duels at mid-range. Mid-range is really his sort of area where he goes to work. Pretty good when he's in the aggressive aspect. He can do the clutch aspect, but you want to leave that more towards just occasionally. I don't want him putting that role in a lurking aspect. I don't think that's as good, which is why it'll be interesting to see how they use him in CLG, because I hope that they'll put him towards the more aggressive aspect of it and the more T-side aspect of the game, rather than him being more in a lurkish role that he sometimes was in a little bit when he was in Team Liquid, and FNS was kind of playing in CLG before this. Now, interestingly, when he joined, he actually said in his statement, my strengths would definitely be being a team player, which I could definitely believe, trading efficiently, kind of reference that, impactful kills, taking duels, mid-range. I am not afraid to go in and revenge a kill if needed. So again, to me, ideally, he'd be like a second man in, or second or third man in, depending on how the team is and how you're attacking that particular site, depending on what the T-side tactic is. So I think that's the best way to use him. I think he's someone where his skills are pretty solid. Like, he hasn't looked that good because he's been Team Liquid, but in terms of skills, it's not like he has sick aim, okay? But he has good aim, and the way he uses it, he's effective with it. He's efficient with his skill set. In terms of actual motivation and drive, I think that's an area there might be some question marks. He seemed like someone where when Team Liquid was having these issues, he didn't seem that bothered about the fact that they weren't doing that well. He just seemed to like go along with it and not be that bothered when they'd lose or have a big loss in that sort of a game. Didn't seem to have the same sort of drive as someone like Nitro to get better and to be successful. So I am a little bit off there, but then again, CLG as a team in general is a bit more laid back in that sense. They seem to roll with the punches of losses in ways that, okay, it's good in the sense that you're not raging, but I'm not really a big fan of it where like you don't mind teammates just doing okay or having an off game. I want people to be a bit more driven in all respects to want to succeed and to go, we're trying to be the best here, we're trying to be better than we are. He seems like someone in general who was, at least before Hiko joined, good under pressure. He wasn't so good when he was in the Team Liquid one, not least because he'd get lifted in situations where he's in 1v3s and stuff. I never really saw him do much impressive there, but in the past, I thought he was a pretty good player under pressure. Certainly while people like Nitro were kind of playing a bit scared, while some of the other players were just playing terribly and getting wrecked by Euros, he was at least doing all right. I think overall, this is one of the best moves that's been done in the NA scene in the off-season. Obviously, simple going to Team Liquid is the best move. But beyond that, I think this is the best move. I think this is better than the FNS, TNSM lineup. I think this is better than Stewie 2K or Cloud9. I think this is better than nearly all the moves in the NA scene. So I think this is a good move. I think it improves CLG. I think it puts them in a situation where actually now they can contend to be the best NA team. It's going to be hard to beat Team Liquid, I think, but they're going to be up there with Cloud9 contending for that spot. I think they can be a better international team if he finds his place within the team. He's a good pressure player. I also think, hopefully, that it'll take away some of the weaknesses that CLG had, where FNS sometimes could be underwhelming and skill-wise just wasn't up to par on an international level, whereas FugLy is better skill-wise. So, all in all, I think that's better. Obviously, I don't think FugLy brings the same in-game intelligence to FNS, but then again, FNS had switched away from being the in-game leader anyway, so it might not particularly matter in that sense. Now, the other thing that they've done in this team is they added Peter as their coach. And Peter was formerly the coach of NIP when they won ESL 1 Cologne 2014. Now, what they actually did in that team, in terms of him being the coach, is another thing entirely. Because it looked to me like Exist still pretty much led the same way, still had the same control over the team. And maybe Peter just looked for things with a fresh set of eyes and gave the odd piece of information to Exist. He wasn't a coach behind the team in the sense of like in-game leading in the team or like calling things all the time. It seemed like he wasn't doing that as much. And also, it seemed like when he left, he didn't have that big an impact on the team. And it also seems like when they got Natu, from the things I heard, sounded almost as though they'd never had a coach the way they talked. So, okay, I can definitely understand, as he was formerly the in-game leader of teams like, I think it was Lemon Dogs, and then there was briefly an SK Gaming lineup that she had Makaleli when he was Examin and Wheaton. So, I could certainly believe that he could come and help impose, a proper practice schedule and get some of the players into a more disciplined routine. That could certainly be the case, especially because the team lives in a team house, so maybe you can have more control over in that sense. I'm not expecting massive things though in terms of this guy joining the team. Like, I think it might help a bit, but overall I think the potential of the team lies in the players and those aspects. Now, I did think before the team had really plateaued, but part of the reason why is because I don't think they got enough out of Kotler. I think he really suffered after FNS kind of swapped in-game leadership roles with him. He stopped being such a good player. Tarek has never quite performed to the level he should have otherwise in terms of being a fragger. He hasn't been like the Nitro that we've seen now. He hasn't been as solid as a Hiko in terms of performance. He hasn't been like a Shroud or a Skadoodle. He's still lacking that extra gear, but maybe bringing in FugLy switches people around a little bit, makes him more comfortable, supports him. Maybe that helps the other stars, JDM, Tarek, have more impact on the game. And now you add in FugLy, you got some more firepower. So I do think this is good for CLG. I think going forwards, this will make them a little bit better, and we'll see from there on. We'll see if they've changed a lot. Because they probably haven't. They probably changed a little bit. And they probably won't just, all they do is win. They'll just win sometimes, maybe about like 55% of the time. I don't know. Anyway, if your name is Martin Helberg, then, well, first of all, you're watching this video. So I have a piece of information for you. If your name is not Martin Helberg, because just fuck off, the video's over. But if your name is Martin Helberg, your girlfriend has asked me to tell you to pause this video. Obviously not right now, idiot. You have to wait like 2 seconds till I've told you why. You have to pause the video and go and look beneath the bar in your living room where she has hidden something. Now, if you've got any sort of brains here, mate, you can probably guess what it's going to be, but I'm not going to spoil the surprise for you. Pause the video. Go and check what it is. Actually, I don't know why I'm telling you go pause the video. Just go and check what it is, mate. The video's over. Go and check that. Your girlfriend's left something there. You're probably a pretty lucky guy if your girlfriend's gone to all this trouble, right? So hopefully you figured out what the fuck you're doing, what it's supposed to mean, and if so, have a good life and all that. I mean, it's pretty much the end of my interaction with you, but see ya.